back to the Hard But Worth It podcast. My name's Kirk, this is Mitch, and we're with Icon Coaching, and we're here at the GrowTech Fest. We've been running a whole series of interviews, and if you've missed any of them, you can go back and hear all kinds of great stories from investors and founders and industry leaders who are all working in the tech space trying to help us all get this startup thing figured out. Today right now we have Clive Savacool with us. Clive, give us a little context for what you do and the role you play.
Yeah, so thank you first off for having me. I'm the founder of LogRx. It's a narcotics tracking program for paramedics and other first responders. My background is a firefighter, paramedic, even a fire chief up in South Lake Tahoe. And so I built a program to track narcotics because there's no really good solution out there. And so it allows people in the field to use phone apps to track all their activity with these controlled substances that's mandated by the DEA. So we make their jobs easier and more efficient and better tracking.
So today, as a startup, this great idea that you're kind of trying to strike fire and get it going, what are you thinking about today when you woke up, headed for work, around this idea? Like, what's the big thing, the big rock that you're going after?
I'm sorry, in the context of the GrowTech?
Just right now, currently with your LogRx, what are you showing up today thinking about in what you need to accomplish, what you need to get done?
So our biggest challenge for our company is brand awareness. And it's arrogant, but we have the best product out there. And it's because it's all we focus on. It's because I come from that industry. And so we don't have many competitors, but they really haven't put the same effort. They don't have the same background. So we know we have the best program, but people don't know about us. So you get the best program in the world, and if the customers don't know about you, they're going to go with your competitors. And so something we've been great at is building an amazing program, but now we need to make people aware of us. And so that's been kind of the focus this last few months, 6 months or so, is just getting that brand awareness out, getting it out into the world.
So what are some of the strategies you guys are doing?
So we've done a lot of great research with A/B testing, with SEO, going through different publications. And what we found is word of mouth is 35% of our customers that we close. We found one publication that really does well at getting our brand out there, and they're also at about 35%. Then with SEO, that's about 12%, and then surprisingly, conventions or conferences are only 0.5% of our deals. And then third parties that also like resellers are about 0.5%. And so we've kind of found our niche in focusing on our SEO. And then this one publication that has such a huge audience. They've been amazing to work with.
Sounds like it's the right audience too.
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. How did you find yourself in a position where you had a fabulous product and no brand awareness, or little brand awareness?
Honestly, the pandemic had an impact.
Yeah.
And so we launched our product in 2019. And so we went to a conference back east. We got some great feedback, great response, got our first customers. Pandemic hit. And at the same time, I was a fire chief. And so all the leads we had said, hey, we got to pause. We have to focus on, being firefighters and paramedics and treating our patients. At the same time, I was a fire chief, and I had to manage South Lake Tahoe, vaccinate 20% of the community, manage massive wildfires, manage snowstorms.
In a time when fires are going crazy, historic.
And so we come out of the pandemic, and just a little bit of word of mouth, with no marketing, we started getting some customers, big customers, like the city of Portland, California Fish and Wildlife.
Wow.
And so okay, we got to get our name out there so other people can have the same experience.
So you were just getting rolling when the pandemic hit, and you just got squished.
We did.
Yeah.
It was kind of a little bit of a blessing because I was still a fire chief, and I was like, okay, I have to have that as my priority. And so if I had to manage both during the pandemic, it would have been overwhelming.
So have you made that switch now, or have you switched your priorities, or are you no longer a fire chief?
I did switch in April, I think it was, of last year. I basically gave the city manager of South Lake Tahoe my resignation, said, hey, I got to move on.
Got another thing.
Got a new thing, and they knew about it.
What was that experience like? Making that, you've been a firefighter, fire chief for a long time.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're probably pretty good at it.
And most fire chiefs I know aren't tech savvy.
No.
I'm curious about that right there.
No. And honestly, I never wanted to be a fire chief. My happiest was when I was driving the fire truck. When I was in my 20s, and I drove the fire truck, put the ladder up, and
every child's dream.
Yeah. And it was just, I became the union vice president, and just through, I don't want to say luck, but I slowly gravitated up, promoted to battalion chief, and so on. And so I never really planned for the chief officer thing. It just kind of happened.
What was it like to give it up? What was that experience like, making this switch?
I think I was ready because it was not an easy job and there were some challenges. I never got to see my family.
Yeah.
I was always working, and then as soon as LogRx started taking off, it was a heavy weight. Like, okay, I have to decide.
Yeah.
And also, I'd only been in Tahoe 2 years, so I felt like, okay, even though I've done a lot for them, I'm leaving kind of early, but I knew that I could not pass up the opportunity. You only live once. And so I didn't want to pass it.
It's kind of the opposite story of people who, like, I became a tech CEO, or what's your title?
CEO.
You are the CEO. Okay, so
I
I
am.
become a tech CEO so I could spend more time with my family and all this stuff. It's not the normal story we hear. But for you, this is actually a shift into, sounds like a passion, a dream. Is it the thing you always wanted to do? Or
No.
like the thing?
No, I never even thought about it until a few years ago.
That's fascinating too.
And I think it hit me as a fire chief that, okay, so I can't retire until I'm 57. I'm 44. Do I really want to do this for another 13 years? I have an amazing family I don't get to see very much. And so the idea of leaving, going doing something else, is like, yeah, let's do it. Because that bright side is I have such a great background, honestly, and good credibility. I could get another fire chief job tomorrow if I wanted it. But since I left a year and a half ago, I get to spend 22 hours a day with my wife. We share a home office, and I've honestly never been happier. And so I'd give up any amount of money as a fire chief.
Interesting.
So to not even take a paycheck as a founder, to be able to spend that amount of time at home with family and still be creative and build your own project.
So you've gained some things that maybe aren't measured in money yet. What are some of the things that you've sacrificed in that change? Right, you let go of the fire chief to become a CEO of a tech, but you're in startup phase. So it's not all romantic. I'm sure there's some challenges to that. What are the challenges you're facing in that right now?
Well, a good example, in fact, being here is a great part of it is I'm doing a pitch, and so there's investors in the audience, and they're asking questions as though they want to throw some money in. And like, well, we're not sure we want investors. We enjoy bootstrapping it. I've invested, my wife and I have invested in the company to build what it is. So do we take investor money, grow faster, and expand and scale up? Do we keep going what's working? And so some of those challenges are figuring out what's best for the company, and it's not black and white.
Yeah.
And so, which is great being here because you get some feedback and maybe some help and insight on what those steps might be. But I would say that coming here and hearing some great feedback from investors puts that in your brain of, should we be doing something different? Are there challenges we're passing up?
So I'm still curious about how the firefighter gets the idea that is inspiring enough to move him to leave a job that for some would say, man, you were hitting a corner where it was the final push to maybe a decent retirement, a decent life, and doing a type of job that you'd be proud of. You can say, hey, that's a good job, but something pushed you. Where did that idea come from? Like, how did that happen? What's the story of the aha moment going, I have this idea around tech that motivates me enough to get behind it and do something about it that would cause you to leave what you're currently comfortable doing? Like how did that happen?
Well, first off, my comfort zone is not being stagnant. I've always got to have something moving forward. And being a government employee by definition is somewhat stagnant. Sure. Supervising government employees is very stagnant. And so for me personally, and I'd had another startup, it was for a firefighter health and safety program that I founded in 2014. It was acquired in 2018 by Envisage Technologies in Indiana. And so I already had that bug, and I love the creativity. I love the positivity of people in the startup world. You don't always get that from government employees. And so I think that because I had that in my brain, and as a fire chief, I was looking for a solution for this problem, and there wasn't a good one out there. And my brain spins like, no, I could solve that problem.
That's cool.
And so that was kind of my brain starting down that path. So I technically founded LogRx in 2016 as an idea. And then as it progressed, and to your question, like, it's very abnormal for a fire chief to quit 13 years before they can retire And I gave up a lot of a pension by leaving when I did. And plus in the newspaper it said fire chief resigns. And so like friends like, what happened? Is there problems? Like, no, it's actually for a good reason.
Yeah.
And so when the idea of leaving left to go do LogRx, it was zero regret. In fact, I left earlier. I was planning on leaving a year later, and I called the city manager and said, hey, I think I'm going to move on. And granted, I'd done a ton for the city, so there's no hard feelings. But I think for me, my comfort zone was progress, doing something else creative, spending time with my family, and like I said, you only live once.
Yeah. Was LogRx already trending at a certain level, passing some milestones that made your shift, like met the conditions so that you can transition into that, where you said, okay, now that I know it's here, I can make this move? Or were you making that move not really knowing for sure if you were going to reach certain milestones that would reach like sustainability for you and your family, or a possible, investment deal or scale deal or whatever it is? Like, where were you at in that process?
That's a really good question, and there was two really big factors. And that was coming somewhat out of the pandemic. We had California Department of Fish and Wildlife contact us, and we had the city of Portland contact us. Both of them had to do an RFP to basically vet, because it was going to be such a big contract, each of them. They had to get other competitors to put bids in. And we closed both those deals while I was still a fire chief. And then you had this moment in your head as a founder, like, wait a minute, someone's paying me money to track their narcotics, these lethal drugs. We can't mess this up. And so my brain is like, okay, am I just going to be able to work on this on nights and weekends? I mean, there's other people on the team too, but like, these are big contracts. And so I realized if I leave now, these contracts aren't big enough where I can pay myself a salary, but they're big enough that I can't ignore it either. Mm-hmm. And so had those two contracts not come in pretty much simultaneously in early 2022, I probably wouldn't have left my fire chief position.
Yeah, there's a real market validation experience there, right? It's like, okay, this thing's real.
Yeah.
This is people who have real needs, who have real money, who have real responsibilities are buying my product to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And that's a confidence boost, I would imagine.
It is, especially when, like Portland, for example, we beat out competitors that have dominated the market.
Yeah.
And when they're like, no, we won LogRx. Like, oh, wow.
Yeah, welcome to the big table, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which was also a shot across the bow of our competitors.
We're coming for you.
So it was an eye-opener.
We sit with we're executive coaches, and we sit with a lot of companies that are in that. They've built something. Is it time to scale question? And it always comes with this, well, but I have to give up the security I currently have to go after the dream I also have. And that's a really difficult question. I think that's probably why we're asking so many questions about this, because it's a very real felt need that a lot of people have to face down.
Yeah.
And you've got to figure out, it's almost like you're saying, am I willing to invest in myself? Do I believe enough in this idea? And it's not enough for myself to just believe in it. But when the market responds and you start to get that kind of validation coming, you're like, okay, I think I've got something. And all of a sudden you find yourself in a position chasing a dream without a salary. It's like, who the hell does that? Well, it turns out people do it all the time.
Yeah, and something that I learned later in life is money doesn't always equate to happiness. I found that life accomplishments and who you surround yourself with are really what make you happy, at least for me. And so accomplishing things as a fire chief, being able to move on to accomplish something with this, I raced motorcycles, being able to accomplish winning championship as a motorcycle racer and other things in other fire departments, that is way more gratifying to me than a big paycheck. Yeah. And then at the same time, I didn't even realize it when I left Tahoe, but getting to be around my wife all day long, every day, which surprisingly has worked very well for us, I didn't realize how much happier I would be. And so for me, it was not money.
So so you've got all this, we call it, this motivation that's coming from something inside. It's not an external money thing or something like that. And it's fueling and driving this change. What is that driving you towards now? What are you going after with it? What's next?
You mean after LogRx?
No.
Or with LogRx?
If you want to go there, that's awesome. Like, we can talk about that too. But I mean with LogRx right now. LogRx has a series of challenges. Where are you driving that company at the present time?
To be a big player in the fire service space.
Yeah.
So I have a very good reputation in the fire service, which has carried LogRx a long ways, my reputation and credibility in the industry. And there's like 2 or 3 big companies a few more that like everyone knows in the fire service. And so if we can build one out with our team, who honestly, we put together the best team. It's just everyone is a very sincere, people of integrity, and we're really proud of what we've done. And we don't do it necessarily for the money, but it's, granted, you want to get paid, but I think for us to be able to make our footprint in the fire service for a good cause, like we could save lives with preventing from narcotics getting into public circulation. So it's something at the end of the day we can be proud of.
Yeah. So if you're to be, let's put you 10 years out from now, just kind of wrap this up with this idea. I don't know if 10 years is a made up number, it doesn't have to be your number, but it's a ways out there. There's time to build and do and all this stuff, and you're 10 years from now, and let's say you sell LogRx or you turn it over to somebody else, or you're sitting and you're done, right? What do you want to see happen at LogRx that on that day, you know, I did the right thing, that was worth it?
When you see a social impact to the world, and one great example that came up this last week was the city of Portland's launching a pilot program. I'm probably breaking the news before they are, but it's this new drug, this combination drug, buprenorphine and Narcan, which is basically a drug they're going out to the public to give to homeless and say, do you want to get clean? Do you want to get off drugs? They say yes. They'll give them these drugs, which are basically a little tab. It doesn't make them high. It just kind of helps settle like DTs and so on, the withdrawals.
Yeah.
And through this, they'll then also set them up for rehab and treatment, help them restart their life. And they're going to use LogRx to track all of that. Mm-hmm. And we're not even charging them for it. Mm-hmm. You know, they're already paying for this side. And we said, no, we're going to give this to you for free. We would love to be part of this program. And so, at least on the West Coast, we have such a challenge with homelessness right now.
Yeah.
It's dominating the news and politics and everything else, as it should be. It's a problem. And so, if we can be part of that, and in 10 years from now, look back and say we helped solve the homeless problem in the United States, even if we made a dent, I mean, that's such a huge accomplishment in life that I'd be much more proud of on my deathbed than making $1 billion.
Yeah.
You know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks, Clive. Appreciate you spending some time with us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I wish you the best in that journey.
Thank you. We're pretty excited.